Stuka Joe here. Good night, everybody. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Time here in San Juan, Puerto Rico. This is an unannounced bomb run, and it's kind of unannounced because I just received a game recently which is going to be published through a Kickstarter campaign that starts in November. The date in November, I don't think it's set in stone yet, so I'm just going to say November next month, and it's a game that I've been after since 2019. And it is this game. It is, well, let me see if my screen wants to work now. Okay, just a second. It is, my camera just went off on me. Okay, let's see. Let's see if it'll come out. There it is. The Other Side of the Hill. This is a game that is published by NAC Wargames, Spanish company, but this is the English version. It's going to be sold different from other NAC Wargames, where within the game there are rules in English and Spanish and components in English and Spanish. There's going to be an English version and a Spanish version. So this is the game that we will be unboxing tonight. But let's say hello first. We got DDLOD. We also have Francisco Javier Ruiz Gomez from Spain, 4 a.m. over there, Francisco. Alan Salazar, Excelsior. William Arends from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. Ben Dover. Joe Quiñones, Tocayo. Buenas noches. Nordic Maelstrom. We also have Michael Mellon, and of course, New York Raider fan, and Groucho Marx. So we have a pretty good crowd for an unannounced video. So this is a game. This is a game that I've been personally waiting for because I saw it for the first time at the second Bellota Con in Badajoz, Spain in 2019. I saw the designer demoing the game, and even Volko Runke tested the game over there. And it's a unique game in the topic and in the mechanics. It's about the German High Command in World War II. It's a game that is for 4 players competitive, and each player represents a faction within the German High Command, and you're trying to gain prestige points by various ways, either by placing your favored generals in critical army group positions, and of course winning battles with them, because if you lose battles, they're gonna be sacked. But also you can, depending on the role that you have, and that will change throughout the game, which is kind of cool. You have a player who's the OKW head, another one is the head of production, another one is the head of operations, and another one is the head of personnel. And these roles change until the reorganization of the OKW in 1942. That's when Hitler practically took over the army. So the OKW player is going to be just one player from then until the end of the war. The other players can switch positions every year. And the cool thing about this game is that there's not always the best person is appointed for the most important position. You'll see it's all a lot of positioning, jockeying, and then Hitler will be sacking generals if they lose a battle or retreat, they'll be out. So you're going to be facing a lot of mechanics, and of course, Germany's going to be expanding at the beginning of the war, and then the Allies are going to come in 3 directions. You're going to have the Western Front, the Eastern Front, and the Southern Front. So this is a game that has a lot of ways of scoring prestige points. Also, each general is going to be of a particular influence group. So you're going to have the old Prussian type of army officers, like, for example, let's say von Rundstedt. And then you're going to have Rommel, who's going to be like a part of the professionals. Then there's going to be the generals that got there because they were, they were fans of the Nazi Party, the sympathizers. But then you're going to have generals that are dissidents also. And in 1942, each player is going to have one of those roles too. But those roles are secret. And at the end of the game, the player that scores most prestige points wins. But prestige points that come from the influence groups, which are secret, are revealed at the end of the game. So you may be trailing behind by some points, but then your influence group did very well, you win the game. So it keeps players engaged until the end of the game, because if the scores are pretty tight, you don't know who's going to win. But enough talking. Let's put this in ambiance for the game. Today we're also going to do a giveaway. And let me show the game that we're going to give away today is, and this is limited to US and Puerto Rico because shipping is still, it's a killer. This is Seas of Thunder by GMT. This is a game that came out this year, 2023, that brings a lot of counters, a lot of ships. Every major ship is represented in the game. So Seas of Thunder, we will be giving out a copy at the end of this live stream. And the keyword is #Thunder. #Thunder. So you got 14 people. So you got a pretty good chance if no one else shows up, right? So Seas of Thunder. So let's go, and to put this in perspective, let's take a look at the intro of the video that I'm making. I'm making a video which is going to be like 55 minutes long. It should be out next week. I'm editing the video. It's a video that gives you an overview of the game and also has the extended example of play that is included in the game's playbook. So this is the intro for the other side of the hill, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so we have here the box, the other side of the hill, and immediately it's a 3-inch box. So it's one of those boxes, and you need the 3 inches to fit everything that comes in. And here you see the back of the box, but we're not going to jump to take a close look here. It's going to have a board, you're going to have counters of various shapes, a lot of cards. It's about over 200 cards in this game, because you have every general that commanded an army group is represented here. And armies, and some that just commanded armies. And we have a mounted map board. There's wooden pieces. So let's just get to it and open the box. And I saw something that I liked about the box. Let me see if I can, when you open the box, it has the portraits of the generals. See, I noticed this yesterday. I had not noticed. You see there, you got Rommel. I think that's Kluge, Manstein, and Rundstedt, and Manteuffel. So those are the ones that I recognize there. So these are the portraits you see there. Kesselring, Guderian, that's Model, and this one I think is Falkenhorst, and there's no generals over here. So here, the game obviously doesn't come like this because I punched it. It brings a lot of cards. It brings custom dice. The red dice for the Soviets, blue dice for the Western Allies, and then you're going to see an assortment of white, gray, and black dice. Black dice for panzer armies, gray dice for regular armies, and then reduced armies are these white dice over here. And then there's 2 D6s, which are regular D6s there. And you have a lot of cards. We'll be taking a look at the cards, so let me place them aside. And now the game can be played with 4 players competitively, and this is a rule book. And it's well illustrated. You're going to see it has examples. I could do another video, which I'm thinking if I have time and I would have this game for more time, I could make a video just on the examples in the book. And because there's examples for each of the mechanics, and they're really clear, really helps you. So the rules come out at about, let's say, 30 pages. Let me see. But they have a lot of examples and illustrations here. 32 pages. About 32 pages there. 32 and a half. This is the rule book for competitive play. And then there's a playbook. And here's where the example of play is found. See, where is it? It's somewhere around here. I saw it. Extended example of play is here. There it is. Extended example of play. And then you have the scenarios. There's scenarios that, of course, you can play the whole war. Scenarios that you can start in 1942, I believe. There's another one at the end of the war, 1944. So different lengths of scenarios included, and very well illustrated. And this is, remember, in English. This is going to be available in English in the United States. You can purchase it directly, no extraordinary shipping costs, because NAC has their distributor in the United States. So you got nice illustrations there. So that's the playbook. But then there's another rule book, because there's also solitaire. You can play solitaire, and you can play cooperatively also. So this is the solitaire rule book. So, and these are not added rules. It's, if you want to play solitaire, these are all the rules. There's going to be a lot of repetition with the competitive play rules. And then we have the player aids. The game brings one of these. This is this is a setup card. And it's really cool because you can take a look at it here. You can see the starting point, 1939, 41, 42, and 43. And then here you have where the markers go, and it tells you each different marker, where you place it. These are the levels of resources and production. You also deal with production here. And here you have other markers. And these are the influence markers. Where do they start in each year? You see there's got the old guard, the professionals, the sympathizers, and the dissidents. And then on the other side, you got the same columns for the years. And here you have the air naval points. Air and naval power is represented abstractly by front. You have the Western Front, Eastern Front, Southern Front, and then you also have Germany, which is the most important front. That's you're protecting yourself basically from bombings, and you have to dedicate a lot of air resources there. And then here you have the positions of the control discs on the board. And you're going to see the board is very interesting. It's divided into areas, and within areas there's going to be sectors, multiple sectors. And you have the black discs is the control disc for the Axis, blue disc for the Western Allies. And it tells you, for example, Area 1, which is Poland, von Rundstedt and von Bock start in Army Group Commands. There's only 2 areas where 2 Army Group Commanders can be at the same time, but there has to be 5 armies there. If one army is destroyed, then one of these persons is going to return to their player card. He's not sacked, but there's no justification for 2 Army Group Commanders unless there's 5 armies. So you have here, for example, the starting positions, and you have them all. See how busy the other scenarios are, because you have the Soviets already there, 1943. So this is a setup card, one of these, and then there's 4 identical player aid cards. These player aid cards, which are double-sided, and they're 2 panels. So you have, for example, here combat resolution, what the dice mean depending on the circumstances, depending the Allied faction, the results, what do they cause, whether they cause hits or not, or you have the double card symbol, means there's going to be a combat event. And combat events are pretty cool because if you roll a combat event die roll, the combat event gets resolved before the combat. So it's kind of a surprise. The events, combat events, you're not going to have any control. They're going to come up randomly, depending on the results. Here you have strategic warfare, what the dice mean when you resolve strategic warfare. So you have combat resolution, depending if you're the attacker or the defender. And here you have the agenda card bonuses. You're going to see those agenda cards. Those are the cards that are kept in secret. So you may draw in 1942 a card, and it's going to say that you are going to score points on behalf of the professionals interest group. So you're going to try to pursue their agenda. And at the end of the game, those cards are revealed, and you score those prestige points at the end of the game. And you have here point of no return, Festung Europa, other, those are the scenarios. Here we have the sequence of play. In this game, when I saw the sequence of play, I said, this is kind of perfect for a sequence of play cards, so I may work on that. So because the turn is pretty involved, it's divided into administrative and operations phase. So you have there the phases. And here you have the New Year phase. Every 4 turns, then there's a New Year phase with its own phases there on the left side, and then you have the combat resolution here. Okay. Now here is where you keep your cards, your general cards. You're going to be appointing generals for army group positions. And these are generals who you can appoint for a particular battle, and if you win that battle, you can win also prestige points. And here's your available generals. Here's your section that you represent, either the chief of OKW, chief of production, chief of operations, or chief of personnel. This will change every year. There can be a change in these positions. But in 1942, whoever has the OKW, when the reorganization of the high command happens, will stay the OKW. And here's where the secret agenda card is placed and revealed at the end of the game. And here's where you place your general markers if they're not on the board commanding an army group or an entire front. And then there's 4 of these divided by colors. You're going to see in the video that I'm making, I refer to the players by colors: purple, red, and you have brown and blue. And I have a general who just hopped out of his bag. Okay. And then you have some wood pieces. You got discs and tokens. The tokens are to indicate where, in areas where battles will take place. And here you have the armies. And the armies are, the yellow are satellite armies. Those are armies of countries allied to Germany. And in this game, there are the regular countries that historically were allied, like Italy, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria. But also, there's potential for other countries: Yugoslavia, Greece, Vichy France, although Vichy France does not add any armies. So other countries, Spain can join the war, also Turkey can join the war. It's not easy, but it can happen. And finally, here we have our map. And the map has a picture of, you have Hitler there with the high command. I don't know what specific year that is, but it's here. We're going to open the map. And then the counter tray doesn't come included. I just took a regular counter tray and I placed the pieces there. So we will be taking a look at the pieces, but let's open the map. As to a link to the page, I can include, after I finish, a link to NAC's page where it says that there's going to be a Kickstarter in November. But I don't think there's a Kickstarter page for this yet. Okay? So let's open the map. Okay. Okay. There you go. Okay, so here we have the map, and it's a busy map, but everything is well organized, and I it lays flat after a couple of minutes because I already finished filming the video. And so let's take a look at what we see here. We see a map of Europe, and you're going to see that there's areas there. The rectangles are called areas, and there's areas in different colors. You have, for example, here, the area, this is the Eastern Front. The brown areas are the Eastern Front. The gray areas here are the Western Front. And then you're going to have the yellow areas that you see here it's the Southern Front, which would be like the Mediterranean Front, but the Southern Front, right? And then there's a sector, a part of the map just for Germany. We see it here. And we have, for example, there's going to be, for each front, there's going to be a display, air naval control display. And here is where you assign your replacements, Luftwaffe replacements, and you have to have this level high here. No effect, but if it's at 4, you lose 1 point of replacements. If it's at 3, you lose 2. You start to have unrest here at 2 and 1. Unrest means unrest within the officer corps. Okay? So that's the Germany Air Naval Control Box. You're going to see there's going to be one in the Western Front also there. And notice also that in the Western Front, in addition to the spaces there, you're going to have that OB West. OB West is the chief of the front. Like, if you remember, Runstedt was sacked. He was an army group commander in the East, but then he returned as OB West, as the chief of the Wehrmacht in the Western Front. So that is a position, but those positions, those OB positions, open up only on specific card events. And here we see, for example, the OB Ost, that's in the East. This is the Air Naval Control Track for the East, and of course there's going to be one for the South, which is the Mediterranean, which is there. So you have to, this is how the game simulates the air and naval part of the war, strategic part of the war, the bombing and also the naval control, naval supply. You're going to see that in the South. There's going to be areas here. This is a typical area. Let's take a look at a typical area, tell you what it means. You see there, the area is northern Africa, and it tells you that it belongs to France, the beginning of the war. And this area has space for one army group head, so only one army group commander, and you can only score points as army group commander by being there in one of those positions. You got to get appointed. That's half of the battle in this game, is getting your guy in there. And then here you have a box where it tells you whether that zone there is neutral or whether it's occupied. If that zone becomes, let's say, occupied by the Axis, then we would place an occupied marker there, like this one. Okay, but for now, let's just leave it up. And then you have the specific sectors. And you see there that the sectors are color-coded. Now, the sector numbers, the easiest way to understand it, I think, is the number that is the lowest is the closest to Germany. So you're going to have Casablanca, Casablanca is in Morocco, Algiers is in Algeria, and Tunis is in Tunisia. So if the Germans control this area, we would see control discs. If the Axis control the area, I'll show you how that works. Let's say that they gain control of the area. You will see a disc there in the number 3 box. And of course, to signify control of the area, we place an occupied marker there. Okay. Now this area also has this landing barge symbol. It means that it is susceptible to Allied amphibious attack. Okay? And then this particular area, all 3 sectors are susceptible. So for example, if a particular event calls for an amphibious landing in northern Africa by the Allies, then you have to roll a die, and the result of the die roll will tell you whether it comes in at Casablanca, at Algiers, or Tunis. And then there's another thing. This area is susceptible to supply by the sea. So you have to establish supply by the sea, and for that purpose, it's also, you have to roll for it. It's not automatic. And that's where these bases come along. You're going to see here the Allies have various bases on the map. And you see, for example, you see there Gibraltar. And Gibraltar can be conquered, but you have to conquer Spain first. And then if you control Gibraltar, naval supply increases by 1. And then you have the other base, of course, Malta also. Naval supply increases by 1. And there's an operation. You're going to see there's cards for military operations, the ones that happened historically in the war and the ones that could have happened. And then we have also here, we have naval supply for Greece. So those are the 3 bases in the game. You don't attack, you don't place any armies there. You attack them by occupying areas and meeting the requirements. So going back here, that's the area here in northern France. And of course, when we're talking about control of areas, we're not going to be fighting alone. In that particular area, you're going to have, whether, if we are fighting, if it's a contested area, we're going to have another marker there, which is going to be this one. Let me place it here. I'm going to have that marker there, which is the disputed marker. So if the area is disputed, if there's armies by both sides, we place that marker there. And then we place our armies here. The armies are these cubes that I talked about before. So let's say we have 2 regular armies. That's where you put the armies there. Okay? So that's basically where the things go. And our army group commander, if we have an army group commander, we would place him here. And that would be the army group commander that influences this battle. But if there's a battle there, also, we can assign a leading general from other generals that are not holding any army group positions. So that is, Northern Africa is that area there. But look at the number of areas. There is a lot of areas. No, now you see the commander. I had it frozen. This is where you place the army group leader. This is von, I can't even pronounce this guy's name. And you would place him here. If he loses a battle, he's questioned. And then you have to roll to see what happens. And this guy has, that 2 in red is the confidence that Hitler has in him, very low. So this guy is going to probably be sacked. And if he's sacked, he's dismissed, he's removed from the game, so you can't score any points with this guy anymore. And remember, placing generals in army group positions and front positions is one way, but it's a very important way of scoring points. So you have all these areas here. So it's a lot of areas, and let's take a look at the ones in the Eastern Front. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be here in Poland. And then look at the types of sectors you have. You have sectors that are in blue. Those are river sectors. So defenders are going to have benefit of defending behind rivers. These are plains. These confer no benefits to the defenders. But there are other sectors here, for example, this one in brown here, that is a mountain sector. Is it mountain? Rough terrain sector. And then you see always a lot of, in the number 1s, this German cross. That is called a Festung sector. And that is important to determine the collapse of Germany. So let's say that our German army is here and the Soviets are pushing, right? Let's place a Soviet disc there, just to give you an idea how does Germany fall. So we're in this area, right, which is Hungary, and the Russians win a battle. Okay, let's say that the Germans are in Budapest, the Russians in Debrecen, the the Russians win a battle and push our army back, so that's how we would move the armies. Now we're at Prague. Now let's say the Russians attack again and they push the German army back. We remove the black disk, and this is a Festung area denoted by the cross there. So that means that this disk now goes into this collapse of Germany display. And then the next one that collapses, you place it here, and the next one here. Now, this is the problem. When you start filling up these rows, then you have to roll a die at a specified point in the turn. If you roll, I believe, lower than the number of tokens here, number of discs here, the game ends with the collapse of Germany, and then you determine who the winner is. Okay, so that's how the collapse of Germany is triggered. Notice all these areas here, all these sectors are Festung sectors. All the ones that are surrounding Germany are Festung sectors there. So you have a lot of those. So there's a lot of ground to cover. So you see, for example, Poland, Hungary, Ukraine, Belarus, Moscow, Baltic states up here. Germans start here at Königsberg, Leningrad, and see where Stalingrad is. And see if I can find Stalingrad. I know it's around here. I think it's number 3 here. Here you see it at the Don Volga. Stalingrad is the number 3 sector. You got 4 sectors. To conquer this sector, which I think what it means, having 4 sectors, that is so huge, you have to get all the way to Astrakhan to conquer that section. What happens when you conquer a particular area? Well, obviously, you gain prestige points by conquering it. Some areas have resources. You see that one here that we see there. Ukraine has this cart there has resources. So you add resources. Not all areas have resources, but some do. And when you add resources to this track here. So here you start at the beginning of the game with 8 resources, and they are distributed in these ways. You got Wehrmacht replacements, Luftwaffe replacements, strategic warfare replacements. So these are the type of replacement points that you get to replenish. You're going to have losses in all these categories. And then here is where cards come into play. You're going to see there's going to be military directive cards. Let me see what happened here. Okay, here we go. You're going to see military directive cards, political directive cards, and production directive cards. But you can only pick cards if you have a resource assigned to them. So the more resources you have assigned to this category, the more cards you can place. But the production chief is the one who controls whether you want to reduce political directives and increase Luftwaffe replacements. So that's the production chief. And that's one of the roles you can have in the game for a year. The production chief can also control the development of projects. These are wonder weapons, advanced tanks, and the production chief gets 1 prestige point every time a production marker is moved 1 box to the right. But this is easier said than done. You have to roll to see if it actually advances. And then here you have the fanaticism track and unrest track. Fanaticism is important. This is fanaticism, this enthusiasm with the regime is what it means. And you're going to see that the OKW player needs a lot of these to score points every year. The other players, there's the dissident player, the lower this is, scores more prestige points. And then the unrest track has an interaction with the fanaticism track. Every time that a commander is sacked, you're going to have 1 level of unrest. And every time that the OKW overrules another of the players, the OKW player has a power to overrule other players in their decisions, it also moves up. But then when it reaches the number 3 spot, it returns to 0 and fanaticism decreases. So the OKW player can't be overruling every day and every instance because he's going to lose fanaticism. And here we see the place where we place our armies. At the beginning of the game, there's going to be a number of armies here, which we can, with replacement points, we can bring onto the map, or we can upgrade armies also. For example, let's say that these armies are here, And we have, for example, on the map, we have a regular army. We spend 1 replacement point, and we can bring a panzer army there. And the panzer army is going to roll 1 of the black dice, and those are full with chances of producing hits. And also, you're going to have here the armies of the satellite nations. So if Spain comes aboard, you'll have 2 Spanish armies here. Greece can also come aboard. Here you have Hungary, Italy, Bulgaria and Romania are treated like one. Turkey, Vichy doesn't provide any armies, but an event can successfully trigger it as an ally in Yugoslavia. And then here, the use of paratroops. Every time you use paratroops, you have to roll a die, and I can't remember what the result, how it decreases, but I think if you roll equal or higher, no, if you roll lower than what is stated there, you can't use them anymore, something like that. I can't remember the exact rule, but there's the use of paratroops is very limited and risky in the sense that you can't use them as paratroops all the time. And here you have the USSR commitment and US commitment tracks. There are event cards that have a USSR symbol and a US flag. Each time one of those come out, the markers move to the right, and if it reaches these boxes, they enter the game. Of course, that's one way in which they enter the game. Germany can declare war on the US and can, through Operation Barbarossa, also declare war on the USSR. Now, this is just the board, and I've shown you some of the wooden pieces, but the heart of the game is going to be in the cards. The cards are going to dictate a lot of the action here. Now, before we go into the cards, just to give you a sense of how this game moves, you have here the turn record track for the year. We would start, for example, year 1939 and fall, administrative phase, if we start from the beginning. So we would have our fall turn would be 2 phases, administrative and operations. And after that, then we go to the New Year phase. And here is where a lot of things happen, like players can change roles. The OKW player now is the production chief, and the operations chief is now the personnel chief. So that's where this happens, and other things happen. And then you have winter, and look, there's 1 operations phase per turn with exception of summer. There's 2 operations phases in the summer, which it makes sense because that's the best time for operations. So you're going to have the operations phase being repeated twice. And then you have this, which I find very convenient here. When you're playing the game, the administrative phase starts here. You place the marker, the phase marker here, and it tells you what happens. You have to resolve the bombing of Germany, and it tells you who is the player who performs the action, the roles in the game. And I think it's time, it should be nice to show now what those roles are so you can have a better idea. So let me pull those out. The roles in the game dictate much the actions of what the players can do. Let me see if I can find them. And as I said before, you're going to have an OKW player, going to have the OKW player is the one that has the most power. I'm looking for the cards, there's so many. Okay, see if I can find it. Okay, just a sec. Okay. That's a lot of cards. Okay, just a second, guys. Nope. Here they are. I put them in another bag with other things. Okay, here we have the 4 roll cards. So we're going to have, at the beginning of the game, these are the roll cards. So a player is going to be the head of the OKW, right? And you have here the responsibilities and the way the player scores prestige points at the end of at the beginning of the year. See, the value of fanaticism, half of it rounded up for the OKW player. Then you're going to have here the head of personnel, and he performs certain tasks. Okay? And he scores prestige points, 2 for every general card in the in-command deck of his player board, up to a maximum of 4. So he really wants to put his generals in position. He gets extra credit for that. Then you have the head of operations. He places replacements, and also if you complete military directives, which are the operations, he gets points. And then you have the head of production. He's responsible for the production table that we saw, and he receives prestige points for every victory in the strategic warfare segment and every advance in the project track. Now these cards, you see they have gray sides in 1939, but then with the reorganization of the High Command, you use the red cards, and the player who is the head of the OKW remains. This represents Hitler's control of the army there. So he remains, and he keeps this card. And then in that same year, at that same time, players now will distribute the agenda cards, which are these cards. These are the cards that are secret, all of them except the OKW player. Everybody knows that the OKW player is going to score, doesn't really score secret points. Scores, these are the different scenarios, the columns. So it tells you how he scores points. You have them there per resource area that is controlled by Germany or satellites, per area under German control. So you're going to see he has an interest, if you're playing this scenario, of controlling a lot of areas. Now that is that player, the OKW player, but the other players will pick among these cards, and it will be secret. So they will be dealt one of these cards. So look, for example, at the dissidents, how they score secret points. Dissidents score if influence equals influence. If the influence of the dissidents, and there's in the general track you keep influence of that particular influence group is they score points for their influence. And then look at this, fanaticism is if it's less than 9, they score points. So they want fanaticism to be low. And then look at this one, per Festung sector under Soviet and Western Allied control. These guys actually want the Soviets and the Allies to advance. So you're really playing against the regime. You're subverting, sabotaging the regime if you're this player, the dissident player. And then you have here the old guard, the old Prussian guard. So if you have one of these guys that has that influence, as an army group commander, there's a bonus. If the influence of the 4 influence group is the highest, that's 10. And for East Front area control, so these guys, if you're playing the scenario, they want a lot of areas under control. And per East Front sector, Festung sector, not under Soviet control. Remember, we saw the Festung sectors, the ones that are close to Germany, not under Soviet control. That's not compatible with the dissidents. Then you have the professionals. For each of their generals that is head of an army group or a front, this is diminished, reduced army on the map, they get a point. But if there's a fortress still under German control or a regular army on the map, they get points. And per area where there's 2 or more of these, they get points. So not necessarily the number of areas, but the number of armies in the area is important for them. So it doesn't jive with the old guard. The old guard wants a lot of extension of territory in the East Front. These guys just want a lot of armies in the area. And then you have, of course, the sympathizers. And these guys have a totally different mindset and set of goals. If they have their guys as position, as group, army group and army group and OB positions, if their influence is the highest, and look at this one, if their influence is higher than the professionals and dissidents combined, they get 5 points. And then per Festung sector, not in Soviet or Western control. So these are the guys that are going to follow Hitler's no retreat rule to the letter, right? Because they want those festoon areas or sectors not be in control. So these are the different ways that these factions score points. Now, that's just the agenda cards in the game. And the game also has, for example, military directives. And military directives are set by the OKW player. These are the operations, and this is the way you can attack in an area or not. See, here you have the conquest of Malta, and the requisite here is that the Axis controls southern Italy and Libya, and then that would allow you to place a combat pawn in base number 8. You would control Malta if you control southern Italy and Libya and play this card. And here you have the prizes, the rewards. You have prestige points to the OKW player, who gets 1, and the operational chief gets another 1. And air and naval control of the southern front increases by 1. So that's a sample mission. You have other missions here like this is Sonneblum Aida. This is an offensive in Libya or Egypt, 1940. So this is early. You have here Sea Lion 2. You have Fall Orient, the invasion of the Middle East. This didn't happen, but it could happen in the game. Weserubung, you got the invasion of Denmark and Norway. Fall Gelb, this is France, Belgium, and Holland. Here you have Sea Lion 1. Okay. So there's a lot of ones that have prerequisite. This one, for example, a season cannot be winter. Some are easier than others. Here you have Barbarossa 1. The season has to be summer. This allows you to place 3 combat pawns and the areas where you can place them. Barbarossa 2. You have Typhoon. And this is also in Russia. And the objective is to capture Moscow here. So you got all these missions, a ton of missions here. Norlich, conquest of Leningrad, Fall Blow 2, the conquest of the Caucasus. Watch am Rhein, this is the Battle of the Bulge. Objective Calais. These are local offensives, those like generic Citadel, Fall Blow 1, so there's a ton of these. And of course, they come in to play in the indicated year. You're not going to start with this one in 1939. 1939, the only one is the attack, conquest of Poland. So those are the operations cards that you will have the OKW chief, and you'll see that that particular situation with the operations, he is the one who takes the political directives. Let me see if I can find it. Political directives. See, it says there who is the player that handles that. Then you have the production directives are handled by the production chief. And here's the production directives. You have projects like here you have the heavy bombers. Tells you the development cost and what you have to roll to advance. You have here submarine bases. And here, this has a prerequisite. French has to be Vichy. Army expansion. Nuclear power. Okay. 1940, you can start this. It has to reach, remember, that track, the end of the track, so it's not a surefire thing. Project Assault Guns. Project Tiger and Panthers, forced labored cards you have, and you have new units. These are all production. This is production directive, and you have to pay this cost in production points. In order to play this card, then you have jet fighters, Type 21 submarines, and this allows you an advantage in the strategic warfare track, which we haven't seen yet. Atlantic Wall. Okay, this adds a bunch of reduced armies to certain sectors. Underground factories. Volkssturm, 1944. Self-responsibility of industry. This reduces fanaticism but increases resources. So there's a bunch of these. These are just the production directives. But also, in addition to the military directives, production directives, we have political directives. Political directives are also determined by the chief, by the OKW chief. Okay, I said military directives, or it's the OKW chief. Yeah, I misspoke. Political is also the OKW chief. And here you have the political directive cards. So this is how some of these cards you bring the satellites into the war. You need a 4 or more to activate. And here you have the specific die roll modifiers. So if France is Vichy, a big chance that Italy will activate. But if Yugoslavia is already an Axis satellite, it's harder for Italy to activate. So you got to choose carefully, because you may try to get Yugoslavia aboard before Italy, and then Italy doesn't come aboard. And here you have the one for Romania, Bulgaria, for Hungary, for Greece. So even Greece can come in the Axis side. Then you have one for the Africa Corps. Libya has to be disputed. So for Libya to be disputed, Italy has to be in the war, because Libya belongs to Italy. So Italy has to be in the war, basically. And you flip the status of Italy to intervention, bribing generals in order for the unrest to decrease. They got the commissar order, fanatism increases there. Activation of Sud. Remember the fronts that I talked about? The fronts are activated by events. And then you can place one of your, try to get your general appointed there. Unrestricted submarine warfare. And this is the reorganization of the High Command. So here, of the High Command prerequisite, it cannot have occurred. Fanaticism goes up by 1, so does unrest. And then you apply the rules of reorganization of the High Command. We talked about some of those. That you're gonna give out the agenda cards. Activation of OB West. The Commando Order. And France has to be Vichy. Declaration of war against the United States. There's going to be a plot here to kill Hitler, and the plot can be exposed, but also Hitler can be killed and the war can be ended. Got the Waffen SS and diplomacy Yugoslavia, Spain. So those are the political directive cards. So let me see if before we go, we haven't seen the general cards yet. Let's take a look at the general cards. Those are the most abundant in the game. And so here we see it. Here we see the stack. It's a ton of general cards. This is the year when they come in, 1940. This is Falkenhorst. You're going to see 2 ratings. The one inside the oak leaves there is the seniority. Seniority is important because it's going to determine in many occasions who gets a job when competing with another general. So for appointment purposes, 2 generals that are tied, 2 generals that are applying for the same position, most of the time the general that has the highest seniority will be appointed. Now this one here, the handshake, is the confidence in the confidence rating. That's a confidence that Hitler has in that general. This is very low. 2 is like the lowest in the game. 6 is not bad. The highest is Rundstedt, has a 10. So here you have Schubert, 5 seniority, 2 confidence. And look at the symbol here. It tells you what influence group he belongs to. Falkenhorst is of the professional, no, not the professionals, yes, the professionals. What do you call it? Influence group. Von Schobert is of the old guard. He has a 5. So when you compare it to Falkenhorst, you can see Falkenhorst has 1 more point of influence. Now look what else we have here. The scenarios where the general starts. I think there's 4 scenarios. In scenario 1, the purple player controls him. So it tells you which player is going to control this general in each of the scenarios. And for example, here you have Erich Heppner. he is of the sympathizers. You know, an ardent Nazi, so he's a sympathizer. Still pretty low, you know, the confidence. And then you have here, for example, the combat effect. These symbols tell you if the Germans are attacking Soviets or Western allies, the green terrain means in plain terrain, then this effect happens. A controlling player, you can change one result in the black or gray die for whatever you want to one of these tank results, which cause 2 hits. Instead of these cause 1 hit, these cause 2 hits. And then you're going to see that many generals, not all, have this special effect that has nothing to do with combat. Resentful. When he is dismissed or removed from play, you add 2 influence points to the dissidents. Notice he's not a dissident. He is of the sympathizers. But if he is removed from play, the dissidents get, as an influence group, their 2 points. Remember, at the end of the game, if you are of the dissidents' influence group and your group scored the most influence, then you get a bonus, as stated in the agenda card. So that is just Hepner. You have another one here. You got George Lindman, 4 and 4. Notice seniority not impressive, but he has a pretty good confidence rating of 4. But his effect is the Germans have to be attacking behind a river, attacking on a river space, or defending. I think this is a fortified space, so it's pretty limited, and it's only against the Soviets. So he doesn't have a lot of military effects. Here you see, for example, von Salmuth. Starts in 1941. And you have all of them are here, basically. Heinrichi, let's see if we see some more. You got Model. Model, he has a 6. That's a very high confidence rating. And then you have Kesselring, 9. He's the second highest seniority. 6, so he's pretty high also in confidence. And then you have this special ability, may not be appointed to head of an army group or activated as leading general. Leading general is another way of scoring points. He just commands army groups. You can't appoint him to lead any battle. And you have Raus there. Hube, you see them there. And then you're going to see some of these generals have this skulls and bones symbol. That is that's a symbol for, how do you call it? I can't remember the word, but it's like a bad event can happen to them. If triggered by a card, there can be a combat card that has this symbol, and this is the only general that's commanding or is on the board. Then and the year is this year or higher, he dies in a plane crash, and that's how you're going to have some of the generals who actually died during the war get removed. So he is he can get removed that way. Here we have Christian Hansen can also get removed due to poor health. He can die. Walter Weiss, Rendulic, Harp, Holit. These come in 1942. These don't start the game. So every year sequence, you add new generals. You have von Manteuffel, Tippelskirch, Hosbach, Schultz. Then there's an optional rule which you can take these generals and use these cards like decoys, but it's an optional rule. Let me see here. And here we have Erwin Rommel. Note, he has 6 seniority, and he has a very high confidence rating of 6. So that means that, why is the confidence rating important? If he loses a battle, he becomes questioned. And all these generals have, for example, this marker. So let's say Model loses a battle, they have to retreat. You're going to flip him to his question side. And then there's going to be a roll, a confidence check. But he has 6. Model also has a 6. So if he rolls lower than the confidence check, nothing happens. He remains in his position. But if he rolls equal to the confidence check, then we place a dissident marker on him. What's the effect on the dissident marker? In a later battle, if he loses and he rolls equal or higher, obviously, than the confidence rating, he's out. But if he wouldn't have this marker and he rolls equal, he just gets the dissident marker. But in a second time, if he rolls equal to the confidence rating, he's out. So dissidents are just on their way out during command here. So you see here that he's susceptible to being removed by wound. Then you have von Mackensen, Lemelson, Herman Hoth. You have Guderian starting in 1940. He's got 6 seniority. Bush, 1939. Strauss. You got von Bock. He's got a 9. He's the second highest in seniority there. Witzleben. And you got von Lieb. He was a Commander Army Group A in the invasion of Russia, also a 9. And look at this one. This is von Reichenau. He was, I think, in command of the 6th Army, but he died actually during the war. So a heart attack. I think that's how Paulus got the command of the 6th Army. But look at Hitler's favorite. In the New Year's phase, add 1 prestige point to the controlling player. So just because you have him, even if just because you have him, you add 1 point. And later, you can become of the dissident's influence, but if you have him as your general, you still get 1 point. We got von Weichs, von Kluge, Kuchler, and here's Runstedt. You can see he has a 10. And he's very special. When dismissed, you add his card to the general cards that enter play the next year. He's not eliminated from the game. Just place him for the next year, and if he's a dissident, he returns his old guard. So you remove the dissident marker if he was a dissident at the time. So he gets a second chance, and historically that's what happened. He got command of OB West after being dismissed as Army Group Commander. I believe he was the Army Group Commander South. So you got all these generals, von Blaskowitz, Stulpnagel. He was one of the plotters against Hitler. And you can tell he's part of the dissident faction. And von List, there's a bunch of them. Now, these are the general cards. And what happens when a general is sacked, right? When a general is sacked, or I think, yes, if your general was sacked, you're going to be drawing these Black Orchestra cards. The unrest level is going to increase, and these Black Orchestra cards have to do with the plot to assassinate Hitler. For example, you have Friedrich Olbricht. He adds a +1 to the coup value. And you're going to start accumulating cards, which are these Black Orchestra cards. You have Karl von Stulpnagel. You have a bunch of these guys. Not all of them are good. Look at von Kluge. If here you see, for example, if he's the 3rd card drawn, there's a procedure to resolve the coup, and if his card comes up 3rd or before the 3rd, he's going to add 1 point, and that point added is good for the coup. But if his card comes before the 3rd card is drawn, before the 3rd card, if it comes early, he's gonna help the regime. So depending when his card is pulled in the resolution of the coup, he may change. And there's another one of these guys who has this same situation, who knew about the plot. Frederick Fromm. This guy knew about the plot, actually executed von Stauffenberg and the lieutenant, his aide, to try to cover up his tracks, but he was caught, and then he was executed. So but you have him with the same situation. If his card is pulled before the 3rd turn, when in the coup resolution, he helps the regime. If not, he helps the plotters. And depending on the result of the coup, Hitler, if it's successful, he's assassinated, and the coup and the war ends right there. Or it can fail, and then you can continue, or it can be in between. The war continues, but then Germany loses a lot of resources because there's no more interaction between the high command and Hitler. So that's a possible effect. And then we go to the combat cards. This is how combat is resolved. Because basically, even when we're playing with 4 players, this is a game where the Allies and the Soviets, and in a sense Hitler is controlled by AI. So here, if the Western faction is attacking, or if they're defending, this is the number of dice they're rolling. You see there, the number of Western dice they're rolling increases with the years. And the number of events also increases. You have the planes are events there. Strategic warfare is resolved in this column here also. So that tells you the number of dice that the Allies roll in strategic warfare. And you have the strategic warfare track here. And you're gonna, that tells you the number of dice that the Germans roll at the beginning of the game. So strategic warfare is gonna have an effect on the number of replacements that we have from each of the categories. So here we have the Soviets. When we're attacking or defending against the Soviets, we use this table. And here we have landings. It tells us if there's amphibious landings by the Allies from 1942 to 1945. So combat is basically determined by these cards in order to determine the number of dice that are rolled, and then we roll the number of dice that are here. And of course, these would be hits normally, the crosses. The tanks would be 2 hits. And depending on the year for the Allies, for example, this star would normally be a hit, but before 1942, it's a miss for the Allies. After 1942, with the US in the war, it also becomes a hit. So there's a bunch of effects here. I can go on and on and on, but I encourage you to watch the video that will come out next week. These are just the components. Of course, I have to say these are pre-production, but I mean, they look fantastic. But they're pre-production. There's things that always are subject to change. And this is The Other Side of the Hill. This is a game that I saw in 2019. It's a very engaging game. The players switch roles constantly. You have secret agendas. You don't know how the players score points, so there's a lot of bluffing and poker face. Most of them want Germany to win the war. The dissidents don't. So you're going to have a traitor between one of you, but you just don't know who that person is. So it has a lot of tension, intrigue, a lot of backstabbing, and in addition, you can recreate the whole war. I think it lasts about 10 hours, or individual scenarios which are a lot shorter. So this is, I think, where I'm going to end this unboxing of The Other Side of the Hill. And we have 23 people. And now let's go to the giveaway. So let's take a look at the screen to see who is going to win this game. And I should bring the game also. Let me share the screen here. Okay, so here we have, it's #Thunder, and the game is Seas of Thunder. Let me place it here. So let's take a picture of it here. Let's see if I can place it with there's the game. See if I can place it with there you go, we got both things there. So this is Seas of Thunder GMT, shrink wrap, 3-inch box. So let's see who wins the game. We got, how many entrants here? We got 15 entries who stuck on for that whole explanation. I mean, it was more convoluted than many unboxings, but I really am psyched with this game. And I've really enjoyed what I've seen so far. So let's go. Let's see who wins. Good luck, guys. Let's see who wins the game. And the game goes to Eric Battle Ready. Eric Battle Ready. Congratulations. I think it's the first time I've seen your handle here. So Eric, the way this works is, let me put the instructions here so you can take a look at the instructions also. Send me an email to stukajoe@gmail.com. stukajoe@gmail.com with your handle that you are Eric Battle Ready, and also with your mailing address. And then what I'll do, is I'll reply in the email with a word, a keyword. It's really a corroboration word. Then in the comment section of this video, you write that word, and then your handle will come out, and I'll see that it's the same handle, and then I'll send the game over to you. I have to do this in case. No, I know wargamers usually it's not necessary, but it's better safe than sorry. So write to me at stukajoe@gmail.com and give me your mailing address. I'll send you the confirmation code. Write it down in the comment section, and the game will be on your way. And if you do that right after this broadcast, I will send you the game tomorrow. Say goodbye to Seas of Thunder. It's going to go Eric's way. So that is going his way, and that's it for now. It's been just an unboxing, bomb run today. I want to thank every one of you. This was done, I decided to do this the last minute because I just finished, I haven't finished, I'm editing the video. And I said it would be nice to do an unboxing because it's something else. It's when you see the components, you can tell it's something different. It's something different. I've never seen something like this. So I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in this unannounced unboxing video, and I'll see you in the next bomb run. I don't know when that's going to be. Hopefully I'll announce it with more days ahead. So as I always say, this is Stuka Joe signing off for now, and thanks for watching, guys, and I'm looking for the bye-bye. Here we go. Bye-bye. Take care, guys. Congratulations to our winner.